search for the Tesla files.
Wireless transmission of power. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a little scary there.
We want to get inside the original lab.
Holy smokes.
And we have really high confidence that underneath this 200-foot tower that there was a deep tunnel right in the center of this octagon.
What if Nikola Tesla's greatest achievement wasn't an invention, but a discovery? And what if that discovery was so terrifying, he chose to hide it from the world?
Tesla in 1899 to 1900 in Colorado Springs verified the fact that the use of wireless was actually possible.
This secret died with him, all except for one person, his loyal assistant. And before she died, she finally broke her silence about what they found that night. Join us as we unveil the truth that was too dangerous to be known. To the world, Dorothy Skerritt was simply Nikola Tesla's assistant, a name in the margins of history. But that title doesn't even begin to cover it. She was the silent witness, the keeper of the gates, the one person who stood beside a fading genius when everyone else had left. She wasn't just taking dictation, she was guarding the most dangerous ideas the 20th century never got to see. And to understand the weight of what she carried, we first have to understand the man she worked for, not at the height of his fame, but in his quiet exile. By the late 1930s, the name Nikola Tesla, once synonymous with revolutionary genius, had been largely forgotten. The man who gave us alternating current, the AC motor, and who dreamed of lighting the world wirelessly, was now living in a small suite at the Hotel New Yorker. His grand laboratories were a memory. Instead, his room was a chaotic library of towering notebooks, scribbled diagrams, and strange, homemade apparatus that would flicker and hum late into the night. The world had moved on, dismissing him as an eccentric old man. But Tesla hadn't stopped thinking, hadn't stopped inventing. His mind was racing towards horizons most people couldn't even conceive of. He was obsessed with what came next. He sketched designs for a particle beam weapon he called the Teleforce, a weapon he hoped would end all war. He still passionately believed in his world wireless system, a way to harvest free energy from the air itself and broadcast it across the globe. And perhaps most fantastical of all, he was convinced we could communicate with other planets, with Mars or Venus. To the press, these were the ramblings of a mad scientist. But to Tesla, they were simply the next logical steps. And to one person, they were not madness at all. They were a mission. That person was Dorothy Skerritt. She wasn't just an employee. She was a confidant, a friend, and in many ways, a protector. While the world saw a recluse, she saw the relentless visionary. She managed his chaotic life. She fended off creditors and skeptics, and she provided a rare, steady presence in a world of intellectual turbulence. She was there for his moments of brilliant triumph, when a new idea clicked into place, and she was there for his moments of deep despair, when funding dried up, or when his peers mocked his ambitions. In a very real sense, she was the bridge between Tesla's isolated world and the one that had left him behind. He trusted her with everything: his finances, his correspondence, and, as it would turn out, his most profound and terrifying discovery. For decades, she kept her silence. But as an old woman, with her own life nearing its end, the weight of the secret finally became too much to bear alone. To a trusted journalist, a relative, someone she believed would understand, she began to tell a story. She spoke of one specific night, most likely in the late 1930s. It wasn't just another evening of experiments. It was the night everything changed. It was the culmination of Tesla's life's work. A night where all his seemingly disconnected obsessions, energy, vibration, frequency, and communication, converged into a single, shattering moment of discovery. What they found in that lab wasn't just a new scientific principle, it was something more, something alive, something ancient, and something utterly terrifying. According to Skerritt, the discovery was so profound that it validated every single one of Tesla's wildest claims. It was the proof he had been searching for his entire life. And yet the moment he understood what they had uncovered, his excitement turned to dread. He immediately ordered that the experiment be shut down, the apparatus dismantled, and the findings buried. He made Dorothy swear never to speak of it. He, the great evangelist of the future, the man who wanted to give humanity limitless power and knowledge, had chosen to hide this one colossal truth from the world. And that leaves us with the burning question, the mystery that hung over Dorothy Skerritt for the rest of her life. What could they have possibly discovered? What was so incredible, so world-altering, that it proved Tesla right about everything, yet simultaneously so dangerous that the greatest inventor of the modern age looked upon it and decided that humanity was not ready, that it should never, ever know. So, what exactly happened on that night? Dorothy Skerritt's account allows us to piece it together, to step into that cluttered room and witness the moment the veil was torn. It's a story of a specific ambition, a unique machine, and a purpose that was far grander than anyone could have guessed. The scene in Tesla's hotel lab was unlike any other laboratory in the world. This wasn't a clean, sterile place with white coats and beakers. It was a cave of wonders, lit by the soft, warm glow of vacuum tubes and the occasional blue-white arc of electricity. The air would have had a sharp, clean smell, the scent of ozone, like after a thunderstorm, and the sound, a constant low hum from custom-built transformers, a vibration you could feel in your bones. These weren't machines bought from a catalog. They were Tesla's children, built by his own hands, each one a physical representation of a thought that had exploded in his mind. Wires snaked across floors, copper coils gleamed, and strange, intricate apparatus stood silent, waiting for the power to flow. This was the temple, and these were the instruments of revelation. To understand what they were trying to do, we have to grasp Tesla's greatest, most enduring dream. It wasn't really about particle beams or death rays. Those were later distractions, defenses for a world he saw descending into chaos. His true, lifelong obsession was energy, free, limitless energy for everyone. He saw our planet not as a rock, but as a living, pulsing dynamo. He imagined the Earth itself as a giant conductor, spinning through space and crackling with natural electricity. The ground beneath our feet, the air above our heads, he believed it was all alive with currents and vibrations. His famous, half-finished Wardenclyffe Tower, with its giant mushroom cap, wasn't meant to be just a radio tower. It was meant to be a tap, a way to plug into the planet's own energy grid and draw power from it, or send it wirelessly to every corner of the globe. On that night, he didn't have the tower, but he had something else. The centerpiece of the experiment was almost certainly his magnifying transformer, what we all know today as the Tesla coil. But this wasn't a classroom demonstration model. This was its ultimate expression, pushed to an extreme he had never before attempted. It was likely coupled with his other creations, his delicate mechanical oscillators, devices designed to vibrate at precise frequencies, and receivers of such sensitivity they could hear a pin drop in an electronic storm. These weren't built to pick up the crude Morse code of man-made radio stations. They were designed for something far more subtle. They were built to listen to the natural frequencies of the universe itself, to the hum of the Earth's core, the whisper of the ionosphere, the symphony of the stars. And that was the real purpose of that night's work. For once, Tesla wasn't trying to broadcast. He wasn't trying to send his voice or his power out into the world. He was trying to listen. He wanted to tune in. He believed that if he could just find the right frequency, he could use the Earth as a giant astronomical ear, diagnosing the planet's own heartbeat. He was searching for the base note of existence, the fundamental vibration that held everything together. He was, in a very real sense, trying to hear the music of the spheres. The tension in the room that night must have been immense. Skerritt described Tesla as a figure of intense concentration, a conductor poised before his electronic orchestra. With a series of switches, the power began to flow. The familiar hum of the transformers rose in pitch, becoming a keening whine. The air in the room grew thick, charged with potential. Sharp cracks of artificial lightning leapt between spheres, and the smell of ozone became overpowering. Needles on every dial and meter in the room shuddered and then slammed against their pins, indicating power levels that defied belief. The very light in the room seemed to pulse with a life of its own. And then, suddenly, it stopped. Not a failure, but a transition. The violent cracking ceased. The whine of the transformers dropped to a low, steady thrum. An unnatural calm fell over the room. The machines were still powered, still active, but the chaotic display was over. All eyes turned to the sensitive receivers, to the delicate needles that measured incoming signals. These needles, which should have been dancing with random static, were not moving randomly at all. They were tracing a pattern, a slow, complex, and beautifully precise pattern across the graph paper. It was a signal, but it was like no signal ever detected before. It wasn't the simple dot dash of human code, and it wasn't the random hiss of cosmic background noise. This was structured, it was intricate, it was layered with what seemed to be intelligent, meaningful information. It had a rhythm that felt almost biological, a cadence that spoke of a mind, or perhaps many minds. In that silent, charged room, they had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They had tuned into something, a signal buried in the very fabric of reality. The question that hung in the air, the question that must have frozen the blood in their veins, was simple and terrifying. What or who were they listening to? For a few breathless moments, it must have seemed like the ultimate victory, the culmination of a lifetime's work. Nikola Tesla, the man who had always believed we were not alone in the universe, had just pulled a coherent, intelligent signal from the silent void. His first, overwhelming assumption would have been one of pure, unadulterated triumph. He had done it. He had finally achieved contact. This complex patterned signal could only be one thing: a communication from an extraterrestrial intelligence. He would have thought of Mars. He had long believed that Martians might be trying to signal us, and he had once claimed to have received a strange, mathematical signal from the red planet himself. Now, it was clear he had been right all along. This wasn't just static. This was a message. It had the hallmarks of a language or a transmission of vast, complex data. In his mind's eye, he must have seen great, ancient civilizations on distant worlds, finally reaching out across the cosmic ocean. He, Nikola Tesla, had built the ear that could hear them. After years of ridicule and isolation, this was his moment of validation. He was no longer a forgotten old man in a hotel room. He was the most important human being in history, the first to join the cosmic conversation. But that initial euphoria was short-lived. As he and Dorothy Skerritt analyzed the signal more deeply, a subtle unease began to creep in. The signal was strange. It didn't behave like a broadcast. For one, it seemed to be coming from everywhere at once, not from a single point in the sky. It was omnipresent, bathing the entire planet, emanating from the very ground beneath their feet and the air around them. It was also layered, incredibly layered, like thousands of radio stations, all playing at once, but merged into one chaotic yet structured stream. Then came the second, more disturbing characteristic. The signal wasn't new. It felt old, impossibly old. There was a haunting, repetitive quality to it, like a record stuck in a groove, playing the same snatches of music over and over again across millions of years. This wasn't a live conversation. There was no call and response, no sense of a conscious mind on the other end, actively communicating with them. The realization began to dawn, cold and slow. This signal wasn't traveling through space. It was leaking from time. Tesla hadn't invented an interstellar radio. He had accidentally built a playback device, a machine for reading echoes. He had been trying to listen to the live heartbeat of the Earth, but instead, he had tuned into its memory. A memory that was recorded, preserved, and endlessly replayed in a medium he had only theorized about. Think of it like this. The Earth is surrounded by a magnetic field, an ionosphere, a delicate shell of energy. Tesla believed this shell could carry power and information. What he discovered that night was that it also acts as a recording. Every colossal event, every burst of immense energy, every moment of profound trauma leaves a scar on this fabric. It's like a stone dropped in a pond, but the ripples never truly fade. They just become quieter, finer, woven into the background hum of reality. The planet's magnetic field, its Schumann resonances, the very quantum fabric of space-time around us, isn't empty. It's a library of everything that has ever happened. And on that night, Tesla and Skerritt had just checked out the oldest, most terrifying books. So, what was actually in this signal? What were these echoes that Dorothy Skerritt later described with such dread? They weren't simple sounds or pictures. They were raw data, impressions, and frequencies that the human brain struggled to interpret but could feel on a primal level. The signal was a chaotic tapestry of ancient trauma. The first and most overwhelming layer was what can only be described as the scream of the dinosaurs. It was a low-frequency vibration, a pulse of pure, biological terror on a scale we cannot imagine. It wasn't the roar of a single beast. It was the death cry of an entire world, of 70 million years of life, snuffed out in a single, terrible moment. Embedded within this was the electromagnetic signature of the Chicxulub impact, the asteroid that wiped them out. The signal contained the searing flash of light, the unimaginable heat, the shockwave that circled the globe, and the long, cold darkness that followed. It was the planet's own memory of its most brutal day, a recording of mass extinction itself. Beneath that cataclysm, there were fainter, more elusive patterns, the whisper of lost civilizations. These were not the Egyptians or the Romans. These were far older. Faint, complex mathematical sequences and linguistic structures that hinted at intelligence long before recorded history. Were these the echoes of Atlantis, or of other human cultures so ancient we have forgotten they ever existed? Their knowledge, their languages, their very presence on Earth had been erased by time and catastrophe, but their ghostly signature remained, etched into the planet's energy field like a whisper on the wind. They were proof that humanity has risen and fallen before, leaving only myths and this faint electronic trace behind. But the most haunting, the most persistent element was the background noise, a constant, subliminal hum that underpinned everything else. This was the dying breath of every living thing, the final moment of every creature that has ever lived and died on this planet. The gasp of a fish pulled from the water, the last heartbeat of a mouse in an owl's talons, the final sigh of every human being who has ever drawn breath. It was a vast, collective recording of biological cessation, of spiritual trauma. The planet had not only recorded its great catastrophes, but the intimate tragedy of every single death that had ever occurred upon its surface. This was the ultimate, horrifying truth that Tesla uncovered. Our planet is not just a home, it is a tombstone, and its atmosphere, its magnetic field, is the epitaph. Every thought, every emotion, every death, and every cataclysm is permanently etched into the reality we inhabit. We are not living in a pristine world. We are living inside a recording, a haunted archive. The ground we walk on, the air we breathe, is saturated with the memories of everything that has ever been. We are surrounded by ghosts, not of the supernatural kind, but of the historical and biological kind, echoes of pain, triumph, and extinction, all trapped in an endless loop. Tesla's great discovery was that the Earth itself is a ghost, and we are merely the latest temporary residents, adding our own voices to its terrible, never-ending song. The euphoria of discovery was gone, replaced by a cold, gripping dread. For Nikola Tesla, this was not a triumph. It was the worst kind of nightmare. His entire life had been dedicated to lifting humanity up, to giving them a future of limitless power and light. And now, he had stumbled upon a truth that could shatter the human spirit forever. He had found proof of something eternal, but it was not the heaven the priests spoke of. It was a library of trauma. He had potentially proven the existence of a soul, or a collective consciousness, but only by revealing it was trapped, a permanent, screaming recording in the fabric of the earth. His great victory was to discover that the universe itself was a haunted house, and our planet was its most tormented room. Dorothy Skerritt explained that his reaction was immediate and decisive. The discovery was too dangerous. It could not leave that room. Imagine this knowledge falling into the hands of a world that was, at that very moment, gearing up for the most destructive war in human history. The implications for weaponization were too horrifying to contemplate. This wasn't just about listening to the past. What if you could broadcast back? What if you could amplify those echoes? Could you weaponize the scream of the dinosaurs, projecting a wave of pure, primal terror to break an army's will? Or worse, what if this signal wasn't just a passive recording? What if, by listening so intently, by prying into this cosmic memory, they had opened a door? What if the past could now listen back? The idea that they might have attracted the attention of something within that echo, some residual consciousness aware of being observed, was a fear they could not shake. And so, they made a pact, a conspiracy of silence between a genius and his secretary. With a heavy heart, Tesla began the process of burial. He and Skerritt deliberately dismantled the specific apparatus that had tuned into the signal. Critical components were taken apart, their unique configurations lost. Notes were scattered, coded, or destroyed. It was a deliberate act of scientific sabotage, a murder of his own creation to protect the world from itself. In the years that followed, Tesla's public statements became even more cryptic. He began to speak loudly about his peace ray or teleforce, a particle beam weapon to end all wars. It is possible these were not just the ravings of a forgotten man, but a calculated smokescreen. By focusing the world's attention on a terrifying but conventional weapon, he was distracting everyone from his true metaphysical discovery, a truth far more dangerous than any death ray. This secrecy did not end with Tesla's death. When he died alone in his hotel room in 1943, the United States government moved with startling speed. The Office of Alien Property swooped in and seized all of his belongings, trunks full of notes, papers, and models. Officially, they were concerned that his work on particle beams and other devices could be of vital interest to the war effort, and that foreign powers might try to recover it. But according to Skerritt's later hints, there was another, quieter concern. Certain figures in the American military and intelligence community had long been fascinated by Tesla's wilder claims. They suspected that behind the talk of death rays, there was something else, something they couldn't quite understand. As government scientists sifted through his chaotic notes, they would have found fragments, references to resonant frequencies of the planet, to experiments in listening rather than broadcasting, to theories about a background memory field. Without the context Skerritt provided, it would have seemed like nonsense, the unfinished business of a madman. But they knew Tesla well enough to know that his nonsense often hid world-changing truths. They were looking for a superweapon, and they may have sensed they were standing on the edge of something far stranger and far more powerful without ever grasping what it was. They were holding the pieces of a puzzle they could not solve, the fragments of a truth too dangerous for any single nation, or indeed, for all of humanity to possess. The secret was safe for now, buried first by Tesla's own hands, and then lost in the impenetrable vaults of a government that didn't know what it had. The greatest discovery in human history was hidden, not in plain sight, but in the silence of one woman and the scattered notes of a dead genius.